UAE to attract 4,000 primarily Russian millionaires in 2022, and 5 regional countries are vulnerable to interest rate hikes. You're watching the Daily Brief with Forbes. I'm Ramia Farrage. The UAE will attract the lion's share of private wealth this year, primarily Russian capital. That's according to a Henley Partners report. The investment migration consultancy projects the UAE will attract 4,000 millionaires, the most of any country globally. It says Russia could see a net outflow of 15,000 high net worth individuals. The UAE's success in attracting tourism and trade through visa waivers has propelled it to 15th position on the Henley Passport Index from number 64 10 years ago. As major central banks tighten monetary policy, liquidity will become scarcer and more expensive worldwide, but more so for riskier emerging markets. That's according to S&P, who say Turkey and Tunisia appear to be most at risk. S&P says this will potentially reduce investor appetite for financial institution debt in these countries. They say emerging markets banking systems are especially exposed through their own net external debt or through exposure to corporates or sovereigns. S&P says Qatar, Egypt, and Indonesia are also at risk. Oil prices rose today as tight global supply outweighed worries that fuel demand would be hit by a possible recession and fresh COVID-19 curbs in China. Brent crude futures rose above $123 a barrel, while West Texas approached $122 by midday. Tight supply has been aggravated by a drop in exports from Libya amid a political crisis that has hit output and ports. Other OPEC Plus producers are struggling to meet their production quotas, and Russia faces bans on its oil. The EU wants to boost its energy cooperation with Israel to avoid Russia using gas supplies to blackmail it over the Ukraine conflict. That's according to European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, who says the EU is working on an underwater power cable and a gas pipeline in the eastern Mediterranean. Israel exports gas to Egypt, some of which is then liquefied and shipped to Europe. There have been talks since March on enabling more Israeli gas exports to Europe via Egypt. Britain's unemployment rate has risen slightly, while soaring inflation is causing the value of wages to fall at the fastest pace in more than a decade. Unemployment rose to 3.8% in the 3 months to the end of April, but remained close to a 50-year low as Britain sees record high vacancies. Meanwhile, British officials say pay in real terms is falling at its fastest rate in over a decade, with UK inflation at a 40-year high. Elon Musk will speak to Twitter employees this week for the first time since launching his $44 billion bid for the social media giant. The meeting is scheduled for Thursday, and Musk will take questions directly from Twitter employees. The news comes after Twitter said last week that it anticipates a shareholder vote on the sale by early August. Ever since Musk's takeover bid, many Twitter employees have expressed concerns that the billionaire's erratic behavior could destabilize the company's business. And that brings us to today's Forbes RealTime Billionaires ranking, where Musk is our biggest loser today, down $11.8 billion overnight with net wealth of $203.3 billion. Our second biggest loser today is Bernard Arnault and family, down $7.7 billion with net wealth of $138.3 billion. And our third place loser is Jeff Bezos, down $5.9 billion with net wealth of $129.4 billion. Check out our website and our social media for all of the latest Billionaires news. Sales of Chinese electric vehicle firm BYD shot up 159.5% to nearly 114,000 units in May, from under 44,000 units in May last year. BYD is now in the second position in the country in terms of overall passenger car sales. It's just behind FAW Volkswagen, the joint venture between FAW Group and Volkswagen. FAW Volkswagen sold 150,000 cars in May, but unlike BYD, its sales are down. It's 10.6% fewer cars than it sold in May 2021. Hong Kong's Jumbo Floating Restaurant, a famed but aging tourist attraction that featured in multiple Cantonese and Hollywood films, was towed out of the city today after the pandemic finally sank the struggling business. At 250 feet long, the boat could house 2,300 diners. It set out midday from the southern Hong Kong Island typhoon shelter, where it sat for nearly half a century. I'm Ramia Farrage. This is the Daily Brief. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.